A nighttime curfew is set to take effect in 3 Egyptian provinces now under emergency law. All 3 have seen deadly violence since late last week when protesters began marking the second anniversary of the revolution with anti-Morsi demonstrations. At least 45 people died in those cities, and another person was killed in Cairo today. Ethar El-Katatney is an author and freelance journalist. She's with me now from Cairo. What do you make of what's going on this second anniversary, Ethar, in your country?
I think there's an eerie sense of deja vu to think that 2 years exactly from Friday of Anger, 28th January 2011, you have emergency law reinstated in 3 states. And this was one of the first primary demands of the revolution, to remove emergency law. As you just said, almost 50 people dead, hundreds injured, hundreds arrested, thousands protesting. There's tens of thousands in Bursaid calling for independence from the country. There's very scary parallels, the same tear gas, the same sexual harassment.
So are you saying, Ethar, if I can jump in, are you saying Mohammed Morsi is kind of like Hosni Mubarak, except he's a Muslim brother? Is that the only difference?
I'm saying that the same demands of the revolution, bread, freedom, social justice, are the exact same calls you're still hearing. The same issues that were considered the primary motivators of the revolution are the same. You have the same social and political rifts. You have the same problems of poverty and urban deprivation. You have political polarization.
But whose fault is that unless you lay the blame squarely at the doorstep of the democratically elected leader? Who do you blame?
You blame the fact that the economic reforms, which I think is the core issue that we should be discussing, which people unfortunately don't give enough attention to, is what needs to happen. And this hasn't been happening. It's been extremely slow. Our currency rapidly dropping and devaluating. We have a big budget deficit. We're losing foreign currency reserves. We need to pay foreign debt, food and fuel imports. You have our only solution, which is the loan, or the biggest policy option that will avert the even more chaotic economic slide, which is the IMF.
So you're not worried then? So you think economic reform is the big project that should be now underway in Egypt, but you're not worried that Morsi is tightening his grip on power, is supporting a constitution that limits basic human rights according to his critics? That doesn't concern you?
It does, definitely, but at the same time, when you look at our opposition, the biggest opposition right now, the National Salvation Front, if you consider it, it's a lowest common denominator group, and their biggest unifying force is that they're unified against the Muslim Brotherhood, that they're non-Islamists. And this weakens them because rather than put the focus on political and economic issues, it means it just focuses on the fact that they're not Islamists. They have also ineffective leadership. There is an inability to come up with a coherent and a unified political narrative. We don't have an agile kind of political opposition. So even if the Muslim Brotherhood is voted out in the next elections, which is what's looking, or that there are indicators that will happen, what is your alternative? You kind of feel that Egypt were running out of options. You were running out of money.
Well, it seems though to me as though, and just jumping in again, I apologize, but it seems though to me as now the opposition has finally said they're unified in their, of course, in their antagonism to the current leadership, but that in some way they're saying enough is enough. Were you out in the streets at all over the last several days?
Yes, and the thing is that people on the streets, this is the most important thing to realize, is that, again, if you talk to the average Egyptian, you have unemployment, it's 13% now. 15% amongst 15 to 23-year-olds. Unemployment's increasing, poverty is increasing. The call is for food. And if the IMF fiscal reforms, which entail us kind of cutting subsidies, massive subsidy cuts, this actually means that life is going to be harder for the average Egyptian. Taxes will be increased. When I'm driving, I see dozens and dozens of trucks lined up for the petrol, and that's one of our main subsidies. So for the average Egyptian, all they care about is we need to buy tomatoes, we need to buy bread. All the political maneuvering that goes on at the top doesn't concern me. And if you talk, there's such a sense of apathy.
Doesn't concern you? It does not concern you at this stage. You're more concerned with economic reforms.
Yes, currently economic, because unfortunately even if we compare the atmosphere or the vibe of 2011 versus now, there's a huge increase in apathy now amongst the average Egyptian who isn't even watching, who isn't even aware. All they know is that, oh, people are dying, people are protesting again. Our lives haven't changed. And this is creating, you can't really tell them, well, there are 5 demands of the National Salvation Front, and the president hasn't been listening to them. And he's actually flying out tomorrow to go to Germany and Paris to talk with investors. And his speech yesterday didn't actually outline any concrete things. They're not paying attention to that. They're just paying attention to the bottom line, which is, okay, so this constitution that just passed by the skin of its teeth, what is exactly this constitutional declaration? The public prosecutor was sacked. We don't care about that. We just care that things are more expensive and our lives are getting harder.
All right, Ethar El-Katatney, thank you. We need to wrap it up here, but thank you. Really appreciate your time here joining us live from Cairo with your take on what's been going on in your country over the last several days.